Welcome to the Monster Slayer Bestiary, where we hypothesize how to fight pop culture's greatest monsters. I'm your host Red King, and today we're going to be talking about the ugliest mountain dwellers in fantasy, trolls. That's it! Get over here, you motherfucker! Oh man, got some on the carpet. Yeah, I'll call someone later. I've got a video to record. Trolls are the dim-witted man-eaters from Scandinavian myth. They're usually described as very old, strong, but stupid, and tend to dwell in caves, mountains, and hills. They are also sometimes described as being no different physically from humans, but we will be going with a more monstrous depiction for this video, as I really don't feel like playing Among Us Mythology Edition until we get to changelings. Now that we have an approximation of what a troll is, let's get into its capabilities and weaknesses. Trolls will definitely have enhanced strength. It is one of the few things consistent across all their myths. The question is, how enhanced is their strength? There are stories of trolls throwing large rocks at churches, so it will be enough to easily put you in the morgue. But I can't really do a calculation with no measurements on how big the rocks were, or how fast they threw the rocks, so we're just going to leave it at that. Next would be speed. There's nothing in the myths about trolls having enhanced speed, and in fact there's evidence to say they would be slower, due to them appearing quite old in every single myth. We'll go for only slightly slower than the average human, as that enhanced strength would probably still allow for it to move relatively fast. Next is durability. Trolls are known for having quite tough hides, and as such are resistant to a ton of physical damage. I will assume for the sake of this video that they have a hide that has about the same strength as steel, making it quite hard to damage, but that's why we have silver to nullify it. Now, let's get into their weaknesses. As I mentioned before, trolls are weak to silver. They are also notoriously dumb as a box of rocks, which most times means they lead to their own downfall. They also share a lot of weaknesses with vampires, including the sun, which will turn them to stone, and religious iconography. The final weakness, however, is unusual. They seem to hate loud noises such as lightning strikes and church bells. This is for two reasons. The first interpretation is that the lightning means that Thor is nearby, and Thor is notorious for beating the brakes off creatures much stronger than trolls, so they obviously fear him. Too bad that asshole started a month-long bender across the 9 realms and I can't get a hold of him. The one time I want a god to help me and they're unreachable and drunk out of their mind in some random pub. Getting back on track, the reason trolls hate church bells was not explicitly said in any of the myths, but I would say it's more of a metaphor for Christian belief washing away evil, or something similar to that. Either way, it's an exploitable weakness. Now that we have the troll's capabilities, let's get into what we need to kill it, and a plan on how to do it most effectively. Let's start with a way to protect ourselves. Now, if you remember in my first 2 videos, I realized that taking a hit from a monster with the ability to throw a rock, the same way a Roldis Chapman throws baseballs, would probably be pretty bad. I recommended 2 types of armor, a suit of silver-coated aluminium chainmail, and a suit of silver-coated plate. Neither of these would really work, as a troll would be able to cave your face in with a punch before it felt the effects of silver. So, instead, we should pull a Jack Dempsey and try to bob and weave by getting something light and flexible, with no loose cloth that could snag or be grabbed, so as to allow us to take advantage of the slower speeds of the troll. Their strength won't matter if they can't hit us. Next is a weapon. We could again go for something like the Belmont Special of a silver-coated chain whip, but the troll would still have a chance to grab and yank it out of our hands. A firearm would not be the best, as you would have to spend cash on silver bullets and at least a mid-tier caliber due to the troll's tough skin. It would be a valid option, but I feel we have cheaper options at our disposal. For trolls, I feel we need a few different weapons. The first thing I would have is a chain whip, but not just as an attack tool. The problem with the chain whip is the fact it could be grabbed. But what if we could distract and disorient the troll before we hit it? This is where cracking the whip would help. We already know that trolls are heavily displeased with loud noises, and while I couldn't find any verified sources on how loud a whip crack is on average due to different whips having different qualities, I did find that the loudest whip crack in history was 148 decibels. For reference, the loudest rock concert I could find goes to the band Sleazy Joe, and it was only measured at 143 decibels. For more reference, I found figures saying that a church bell can ring at about 125 decibels. Needless to say, a whip could very easily disorient a troll and allow us an opening to attack with our whip. An attack pattern of cracking the whip before striking the troll would be effective, and it would also give us a good amount of chances for feints and fake blows. Even if the troll somehow manages to catch our whip and try to turn us into a makeshift sling, letting go and allowing it to burn its hands on the silver-coated weapon would be the best option. But then we'd be defenseless, right? That's where the other tools come in. I would also bring a sword and shield combo. Now, normally I would say bring a spear and shield combo, but in this instance, we would want a slightly shorter weapon. This one is for my How to Train Your Dragon fans. Remember in the first movie, there was a weakness for the dragons that made them disoriented by them clanging their weapons on a shield, before it was completely forgotten in every other piece of media in the franchise. Well, I say we do the exact same thing. By covering our shield in a sheet of metal, we can easily bang that shit together to make some noise, and then attack the troll. This would work good enough to finish the job the whip started. You wouldn't start this way due to the issues of shorter reach with the sword and having to get close, as well as the noise of clanging metal not being nearly as loud as the previous whip crack, but it would work for an emergency or finisher strat. So, that's us, right? I should start the outro now and that's the video finished, right? Well, no. See, there was one thing I neglected to mention in my summary of trolls that gives them a stark difference from the vampires I compare them to, while also giving them a big advantage in our fight. Trolls aren't solitary. That's right, trolls aren't inherently lonely creatures like me. Instead, there are many stories of trolls having full-on families, so we don't have to contend with just one, we may have to contend with up to 4. Now, the whip strap should still somewhat work, but with multiple opponents, the chances that one of them just grabs and yanks the chain out of our hands and leaves us with our inferior sword strat is quite high. Now, this could be solved by bringing more people so as to not be at a disadvantage in numbers, but that feels a little cheap. Instead, how about we make this into a spectacle with some fireworks? Sadly, my government limits firework noise levels to only be 120 decibels, so I'm legally forced to work with that. Sorry about that. Thankfully, that should still be close enough to disorient the trolls. If we shoot a firework at the trolls from a proper distance, and then running after it, the firework will explode, the trolls will be hurt by the sound, bright light, and explosion, and we'll have a massive opportunity to start taking them out before they can recover. This can easily be done because trolls are dumber than bricks, and if you piss one off, they're going to try and follow you, so you could easily lead them to a designated area where you either have a remote launch system or another person to shoot the firework, and then you should have the perfect chance to cut them down with whatever silver weapon you choose, finishing off the Dumb and Dumber Bridge Guardians with perfect efficiency. Anyways, that about wraps things up for this episode. I need to go plan a gift basket for the intern I killed at the beginning of the episode, but if you have any ideas as to what mythological creature I should theorize about next, then comment it down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Red King, signing off.